my name is Wendy, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to create a background using Tim Holtz Distress embossing powders and Dreamweaver Stencils. And we are going to do a technique very similar to the double glitter technique that has first been created by Linnell Harlow with Dreamweaver Stencils. I'm going to use the maple leaf stencil and some double-sided mounting paper, which is adhesive on both sides. We're also going to use Hawaiian coconut soap. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First, you want to put this coconut soap on the background of the stencil. What we're doing here is creating a barrier between the adhesive of the double-sided mounting paper in between the stainless steel of the stencil. The soap will allow you to release the paper from the stencil after you have added all of your powders. You want to get a nice good coating onto the stencil so there isn't any sticky areas that don't release from the paper. Once you get your stencil nice and soaked on the background, I take this toothbrush and I kind of get all of the soap out of the areas, the corners where powder may not stick once I apply it to the paper. Okay, so I think I have a good coating there. You can kind of see it's duller versus the other side, which is more shiny. I then am going to release my paper backing. So now I have a sticky piece and the protective backing. At this point, I am going to lay the soap side of my stencil down onto the paper, like so. Here is my protective backing. Waxy side down, I'm going to burnish over the top of the stencil. And this is ensuring that my stencil is adhered to the sticky part of the paper. Oops. The reason the burnishing is important is if you don't have your stencil completely adhered to the paper, you may get powders underneath the stencil and it won't give you the crisp image that we're looking to get. So I'm going to start with the Aged Mahogany Distress powder, and this can be applied in any number of ways, but for this technique I'm just going to sprinkle it on. Just kind of where I want. This maple leaf stencil, we have a festively fall theme this month, and so I'm kind of using these darker powders to achieve the edges of the leaves. Next, I'm going to use milled lavender. And again, I'm using my favorite little doodlebug scoop here to just apply powder randomly. At this point, I'm not too concerned about complete coverage because I'm going to push it around with my finger to kind of mix the powders together. And in addition, at this time, I'm also mixing the powders as well as adhering them to the sticky paper. If I need more powder, it's definitely not too late to add. But pushing it around with your finger is a really good way of achieving coverage without wasting very much. Alright, so here I have some good coverage on my leaves. I am now going to take scattered straw embossing powder, and I'm just going to apply a little bit to the branch part of this. Again, just pushing it around with my finger to get coverage on the sticky paper. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. So the next step is we're going to peel the stencil off of the sticky paper, and I want to ensure that my image is crisp and that I'm not going to disturb the negative part of the image when I pull the stencil off. So using you know, your favorite way of getting glitter or embossing powder off, I use glitter magnets from Elizabeth Craft. You can also use a Swiffer dust picker upper, a microfiber cloth, which is actually what I'm going to use, and just brush off the excess here. And you'll see when I remove the stencil why this is important. So here I go, and I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to peel the paper off of the stencil, and you can see that soap now why it is important. It just simply peels right off of the paper and leaves me with this nice crisp image. So everywhere that is exposed is still sticky, even though that I pulled it off of the soaped back of the stencil. To ensure that nothing else sticks to this area, I'm going to use some glitter. I am using today Stampendous Microfine Glitter. Excuse me, it's multi-crystal ultra-fine glitter. And I'm just kind of putting it on the sticky areas. You can see it's nicely sticking on there. Dumping all of the excess back into my little dish. There we go. So now you can see the nice shimmery coverage. I'm going to just give it a good tap with my spoon to get off the areas that I don't want glittered, which is the leaves, of course. And then with a heat tool, I'm now going to heat up the embossing powder. Now, distress powders are a little bit different than your normal embossing powder. They don't get shiny when they're melted. So, excuse the noise of the heat gun, but I'm just going to, oops, plugged in. Just going to heat this up. You probably can't see this in the video, but the powders have melted to the adhesive sheet, and you can take your finger and push them around at this point and nothing is moving around, and that's how I know that this is melted. Distress powders, they're just what the name says. They're distress, and so they're there to add color. You can rub them a little bit, burnish them with your finger, and find that they might get a little more vibrant, but they're distress, and that's the whole point of it. So here I've created just another way of using your stencils with other products, such as the distress embossing powders. This can also be used with glitter. Obviously you wouldn't heat up the glitter. Instead of embossing powder, you would use glitter. I apologize for that. So here we've created this. And this is the background that I have created in the card that I completed. The thank you stencil was used with aged mahogany distress powder, and the same technique. I applied it to the stencil, peeled the stencil off, and then heated it up. I hope you enjoyed this and that you can create your beautiful cards or backgrounds with embossing powders by Tim Holtz Distress Embossing Powder line and Dreamweaver Stencils. Thank you for watching.